There we go. Hello, everyone. Casey Barker here, CEO over at Empowering Conversations and New Perspectives. And we have a podcast episode for you today that is going to blow your mind because it's something that we all deal with in every stage of our lives. And we're going to give you lots of tips and tricks and understandings about the one thing that could be beneficial to your life if you know how to manage it, or something that can feel like it's totally sabotaging your life. So I want to introduce Miss Julie here, and I'm going to let her do her own little bio. So welcome, Miss Julie. Tell us all about yourself.
So thank you for letting me do my own bio, because like on my podcast, I do the same thing, because it's otherwise when I read someone's bio, I feel like I'm reading their dating profile. It's like long walks on the beach. And so my name is Julie Paulston, as you can see my name down below. I am a transformational life coach. I empower women to rise from the ashes of their lives, to reclaim their divine inner phoenix, and remember who they were before the world told them that who they should be. I do that because I've risen from the ashes multiple times. I have 32 years of sobriety. 2020 was a shit show for me personally, as well as everybody else out there. July 11th, I broke my wrist in 3 places. August 27th, I got fired. And September 15th, Hurricane Sally came in and I had 3 feet of water in my house. And I lost everything that I owned, because when I moved down here, I didn't know that you had to have flood insurance with hurricane insurance.
Oh,
so I had hurricane insurance and I was like, oh, well, I have insurance.
Yeah.
I'm from the West Coast. We don't have hurricanes on the West Coast. I'm in Pensacola, Florida now. But so it really started me on this journey of discovering really who I was, because I was so identified with the job that I had. I've been an educator. I've been a speaker because of the sobriety. I've done tons of speaking. I love being able to motivate and educate and inspire others. So this was just pretty much a natural path for me. And then the universe makes no mistakes. I got introduced to the right people and ended up in Tiffany's world and in your world. And now doing what I do is just, I'm obsessed with helping people heal.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to hit on too, is like, so Julie and I have already been on the journey that we lead everybody else on, and we've been with it together. Like, we've been partners, and the connections that come from this kind of work there's nothing like it whatsoever. And we grow with each other and we encourage each other, and it's truly life-changing. Truly, truly is. And part of what we wanted to do in the first bit of this podcast episode was give you guys a rundown first on what are the things that we're going to talk about today. And one of the things that I like to do with a lot of my clients is I have these cards, and they're empowering questions. And the empowering question that we pulled first thing out of a deck of about 60 was so spot on. So right. I already know we're in great alignment and that inspiration's coming through. So what kinds of reoccurring situations or people do I attract? So what we're going to talk about today is stress addiction. And stress addiction is something that we can avoid. However, we can manage and cope with it and really make it towards our benefit. So we do have, good stressors and bad stressors, but our body doesn't see it that way. And for one thing that I specialize in is helping a lot of people come into flow and alignment and stepping out of that self-sabotage and getting their empowering conversations internally, so that is what reflects out of them into their life. Where Julie has a different kind of platform right now. So we're both trained in so many different techniques. So it keeps things very interesting. But I know she has something special coming up soon that I definitely want her to tell you guys about. So go ahead, Miss Julie.
So if you're talking about the challenge, it ended on Monday. It was the full week. No, it's okay, because I had this challenge and I just want to share it. So I run this challenge. Yeah. I ran it one time. It's so funny because the universe speaks to us, and the universe has been speaking to me long before I broke my wrist. But I was like, hello? Oh, no, I'm just going to go ahead and put that in spiritual voicemail. I'll just check it later. It's fine. And if you don't answer the phone, eventually it is going to get louder and louder and louder. And so hence, I call it the trifecta of unfortunate events from last year. So I was talking to another friend of mine and I said, sometimes in life, I just want to chuck everything. I just want to chuck it in the fuck it bucket and move on.
Yeah.
And it was like, this thing hit me and I was like, oh, I'm going to run a challenge. And so I created a 5-day challenge, and it's called How to Chuck It in the Fuck It Bucket and Move On with Grace and Ease. The first time when I did it, I thought, I really wanted to do it because, we as women, especially as women, men, you do it too, I know you do it too, is we have our goal jeans, like the jeans that we used to be able to fit into that sit in our closet. And we were like, oh, okay, well, eventually I'm going to get back there. And those are the jeans that I'm going to wear. And then we also have our fat clothes in the closet. And I can say that because I used to be 300 pounds and I've been everywhere in between. So, we have that just in case I go back that direction. And so the whole challenge was really started on that kind of thought process of, we hold on to this and we hold on to this shit. We just hold on to it. And what we use it for, instead of as motivation, it's a stressor, because in our minds we go, I cannot believe that I let myself get this fat. I cannot believe that I cannot wear those jeans. I cannot believe that I look like this again. So we're using our goal jeans as a club. And then we look at the other things. Well, I better hold on to it because, you can never stick to a diet. You can't do what you're supposed to do. And so that was the premise of the challenge. And then when we started diving into it, it took off a life of its own, and people were going into like anxiety and abandonment issues and all this healing stuff that I was like, okay, this is where it needs to go. We're just going to roll with it. And the first time I ran it, it was super successful. People, like, the testimonies I had were amazing. And then we just got done on Monday. And same thing, people were like, Julie, I had no idea that I could release this stuff, that I could, move past this and learn how to deal with the different stressors in my life. And so I think I'm going to run it again in another couple of months, because good grief, with everything that's going on in the world, probably should run it maybe once every 3 months, once a quarter maybe. So, but I always end it on a full moon and I'm not going to tell you why, because it's a super surprise and it's really super cool. So, but as soon as I do another one, I will let you know, so that people can join it. It was originally done just to really kind of be a fun thing, and it has morphed into some incredible healings and self-discoveries that my clients are having of, wow, okay.
And that's kind of what we do, right? It's like part of what we do together and for our clients is, it's magical. I mean, that's the only way I can really describe it to people. It's like, you just gotta, my podcast is, it's like empowering conversations and new perspectives, is because if you want a new beginning, you've got to open up that perspective to allow whatever's going to come up, and we can deal with it as we go. Just like you're saying, it's like we can set an intention on one thing, but if we hyper focus on that, same thing with those fat clothes or those goal clothes, it's like you have so many blocks and limitations around it that you don't see the positive and the things to be grateful for, and the things that are these reoccurring situations or the lessons that we need to learn. And we just say, oh, I don't have time for that right now, or that's not for me. That's totally somebody pushing that onto me. And that's the one thing that I've noticed with like working with my clients, is what I see as a pattern of my clients is most likely the same thing that's coming up in my life that I'm suppressing down. And that's the part of what we do individually together too, is we are always healing like our own stuff. We're always working on our own stuff. And that's what makes our coaching practices so much different than some of the other ones that I have seen. And some of the other ones that I've even participated in, is it's not going to be overbearing of structure. It's overbearing in love, right? Yeah. And moving through this stress is, like we're going to talk about today, is that's what it needs. It needs that space to just be, and to be loved on, and to be healed with, and given the opportunity to show us what it needs to show us, so that we can fuck it bucket, right? We can drop it in that fucking bucket and move on. So I'll let you take over a little bit. I mean, the first thing we wanted to highlight was really like, what is actual stress in our body, right? So go ahead.
So it's funny because when I was a facilitator for a national company, and I taught stylists all over the United States, and ended up in Chicago for almost 2 years, and now in Pensacola. And one of the things when I would open up a class is I would ask, are you always getting the outcomes that you want? Is your life always giving you exactly what you want? 99.9% of us, no. And that other 0.1% is probably because they're fibbing. We're not always getting a perfect outcome. And the reason being is because it's our habits. Our habits determine our outcomes. So that card was absolutely perfect because until you shift at the base, you're going to always bring those same people in. It's different faces, but same place, different faces, different places, but the same shit, different day. So when you keep bringing that into yourself, it's really a gift that the universe, whatever you want to call it, God, universe, spirit, I call it Gus. It covers all the bases. It's a message from Gus. It's a message from your unconscious going, hey, psst, you got something I need you to look at. And what we do is we're like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. The world's on fire. But
everybody else has that too. It's okay if I have it too.
Yeah. And our habits are a direct result from our beliefs. And a belief is simply a thought that you keep thinking. So at some point in time in your life, you could have been 2, 5, 10, 20, whatever. You got a thought in your brain and you kept thinking it and thinking it. And we know that with law of attraction and all there are 11 other universal laws, but with some of those laws, you're putting it in your brain that that's what you want. So your thoughts determine your beliefs determine your habit, because what you think about, you start doing. And then your habits, you get your outcome from doing the same thing every single day. There is no practice makes perfect, period. That is the biggest lie that has ever been sold. Unless, because they say practice makes perfect. Well, if you're practicing it the wrong way, then I guess you'll be perfectly wrong. But it's never going to be perfect. And I loved what you shared about that we're still on our healing journeys.
Oh, yeah.
As coaches, we're never healed. And we're always going through and looking at our own stuff and doing that. And it starts us to get stressful. And stress is that thing that, like Casey said, we're never, ever, ever going to get rid of stress. We have good stress and we have stress that's a little bit challenging. And it's really about learning how to deal with stress. And so if you're watching, I have something that I want you to do. It's kind of cool. What you're going to do is you're going to take your finger like it's like you've got a tattoo of a mustache. And what you do is you take a deep breath in, and I'll demonstrate it, and then you can do it. So you take a deep breath in, and then you exhale 3 times really quick out of your nose. Now, if you have a whole bunch of boogers or something like that, just wipe them on your shirt. Nobody's going to pay attention. It's fine. It's fine. But what happens when you do that, when you take that deep breath in and you blow out, one side of your nose, one of your nostrils is going to put about a little bit more force than the other. So if you find that your right side is putting out more force, that means that you're in fight, flight, or freeze. If your left side is putting out a little bit more force, then you are in rest and digest. That means that your stress level is a little bit low. So it's very interesting. The first time I heard that, I was like, whatever. And I did it, and I was like, well, I don't like this very much at all. And then I've done it multiple times when I know I'm just like calm, cool. I'm at the beach. I'm living life. Life is good. And it is my left side. I thought, ain't that about a bitch? How does that happen? But when we discover stress, it's really about acknowledging it instead of running from it. That's the biggest thing, and learning how to work with what happens when we get stressed. Because when we get stressed, we turn on all sorts of systems in our brain and in our body, and we tell our adrenal gland that if there's a saber-tooth tiger, hit us with adrenaline so we can run and get out of the way. If it's like just today, I was telling Casey, I took my car in because it's been making this noise and they couldn't find it. And then all of a sudden today, they're like, oh, it's your axle, but you didn't know that before. So it's stressful. So I don't need to run. So I don't need the adrenaline, but my cortisol level is way up. And as a human being, we can maintain a stressful situation, and we can maintain our stress for up to and over 2 years.
Wow.
So your body will adjust to your cortisol level. And it's funny because we talk about stress addiction. That is the number one addiction in the United States. I ran a master class and I asked, I had quite a few people online and on Zoom and live. And I asked them, I said, what's the number one addiction in the US? Some people said it was alcohol. Most people were like, oh, it's sugar, it's sugar, it's sugar. Surprise, surprise, it's stress. Because we don't realize, like with sugar, you can stop eating sugar and our different receptors in our brain go, wait, oh, I need sugar. With stress, it's very interesting because when we start bringing our cortisol levels down and we start healing our stress, even good stress, it brings us into what Casey is going to talk about today is the side effect from lowering your stress is self-sabotage.
Yeah, definitely. So with that, I mean, scientifically, like she's saying, it's like the cortisol and the adrenaline is what cortisol gives us that fat, right? So if we're stressed out, that self-sabotaging behavior is most likely going to lead into what someone else would call as an actual stress addiction behavior of, overeating, over drinking, overworking. And that stress in our body is something that I went through a detox of too. It's like I lost 40 pounds in less than a year. And it was literally only because I took care of my cortisol. I eliminated and removed everything in my body and in my environment around me that was causing me stress. And it was very stressful. However,
healing is not people are like, oh, well, I'm just going to sit and I'm going to shove a crystal up my ass and pour essential oils over my head and meditate and all my stress is going to go away. Bitch, please, that is not how you get rid of stress. You actually have to go in and do the work to heal.
Right. And that's it, right? So and the one thing that Julie's already touched on is the one thing that creates so much stress mentally for us, and the expectations that we aim to hit are always from an outside source. And that's what I eliminated in my life, is through the work that we've been doing and that we're trained to do with others, is getting down to that actual root cause problem, which most of the time is the judgments of others, the shame, the guilt, the humiliation, all of these things that we help our clients heal through so that their cortisol levels can become something of an asset for them. We allow the management of that stress to be forward momentum. And the empowerment that comes from that forward momentum is what creates the adrenaline of us in our lives, and also creates a balance of what we teach. Is like she's saying, it's like, yeah, sometimes people like the symbolism of crystals, right? And meditation is something that we all do. And it's about finding what works for you the most and not something someone else is telling you to do. Well, I know like the empowering conversations that both of us have with our clients is, like, who are you? Like, what do you need? Like, what is it that you actually need for you? We can give suggestions and like, well, let's try this and let's try that. How did that feel? And, a lot of us didn't even grow up in those environments. It was fall down, you're okay, get up, let's brush it off, let's keep going. And that is what creates those spikes in levels of our cortisol over and over again, like you're saying, in my opinion, of, this, I knew I could handle this, so I know I can handle this. Well, when are we going to learn how to detox it down so that we know how to handle this, we can handle this, and then we bring it back down? That's that state of peace of mind that we have control over. And control is something we all really aim for. And control has to be balanced with allowing, right?
And we have when you think about it, you really have no control because the only thing that's constant in life is change. And it's funny because when I talk about crystals, people are like, whatever. And I was like, but if you could only see my desk right now, because I have crystals all over my desk. They're everywhere. I've got crystals everywhere. I have a little selenite tower. I have crystals everywhere. So don't get me wrong when I talk about you to shove a crystal up, you're asking. But
sometimes it's literal, but
it might work. But please, no, we're not going to go there. It's like when you have a weed in your garden and you just mow over it, the weed's going to grow back, and you mow over it and the weed's going to grow back until you go down and literally pull the weed up by the roots and get all of the roots.
Mm-hmm.
that it's gonna keep coming back up, and people don't understand. Like, you're gonna keep bringing in the people that are gonna validate that deep down seated belief that sometimes we don't even know where it came from. And that's what Casey and I do, is we have the ability to go in, and I call it the shit pit of your brain, but we have the septic tank of the brain to be able to go and empty it out and help you to find out what that root cause is. Why are you doing what you're doing? And in my course, totally giving away day 2 or day 3. When you have that big rock that you know what it is, and I don't know, Casey, I don't know about you, but a lot of my clients, you ask them, so what is it? They don't even know.
No.
They're like, I don't know. I just feel like crap every day. And I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm waking up in the middle of the night sweating, and I'm not even in menopause, and all of these signs are signs of adrenal fatigue. And it's really finding out really what is it, number one. And then I always ask in day 3, one of the things that is a prompt is, who would you be if you didn't have that big rock? Who would you be if you didn't have that 1,000-pound thing, whatever it is, the issues of abandonment or weight gain, weight loss, whatever it is. If you didn't have that 1,000-pound boulder on your shoulders, who would you be? What would your life look like? And people are like, well, I don't know, because we identify with our stress. It's like our little baby. We're like, oh, this is my little stress baby, and I don't want to give it up. And Casey, what you talk about is perfect, because when we do start to heal, and when we do start to bring down the stress levels, that's when that self-sabotage kicks up. And I know you and I both tell our clients, it's going to happen, period.
Definitely.
It's going to happen. You can say, I'm not going to self-sabotage, but the minute you bring cortisol levels, the minute you start healing your stress, well, hate to break it to you, it's definitely going to happen.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, so managing our stress means choosing which one we want, right? So it's like nothing changes if we don't change. And that's what we're choosing to do with these self-sabotaging behaviors. It's like, you think, like with me, it's like, if I think I was needing food, then it's just literally taking a deep breath out of an exhale, right? Not more or less just in, but like you were doing, like focus on the exhale to get rid of, and sit there for just a second and say, am I really hungry? Do I really need to go soothe myself this way? Or can I just sit here for a second and, self-soothe? That's something we always try to teach our babies, right? And that is a trait that will always benefit us. However, even in that way of that creates those thoughts and those beliefs that give us that cortisol or adrenaline too, of, if we have control, like you're saying, if we only focus on having control and don't balance it on how do I allow something to happen, then we only have a negative of dominance. We only have a negative of being critical and judgy. We only have those highlighted, and we're not allowing understanding and trust and self-acceptance. And those are the flows that we really need in our life. And getting through these self-sabotaging behaviors and, our drama cycles of our life is what I highlight the most too, so that we can have joy and happiness and peace and flow and all of the positives we're all looking for. It's just not being taught, in my opinion, very often on how to get there.
And I think it's funny. I say this a lot, and I share this a lot, is that when you were little, what was the very first toy you were given as a little girl? What was it, Casey? What was your first toy?
My very first toy that I can remember is probably a Beanie Baby. And then I got addicted to them, and I literally had over 300 of them, because that's what made me feel loved and safe and accepted.
So most of us, you had a Beanie Baby or a doll. Yeah. So you had that baby, and our parents, bless their hearts, no judgment, didn't know any better, because if you don't know any better, you can't do any better. What did they teach us? Take care of the baby, take care of the baby, make sure that the baby's safe. Do you have the baby? Okay, we're going to go to the store, bring the baby. So from that time, you're taught to take care of something that is out here. So immediately I'm taking care of something that's out here. And I'm taking everything that's in here and I'm putting it out here. And I'm taking everything, my love, and I'm putting it out here. And I'm taking my self-respect and I'm putting it out here. And as you get older, if you were stuck in a situation where you were in a house of abuse where, you know, your parents didn't take care of you, now you're taking care of siblings. Now you're taking care of parents. Now you're taking care of your friends, and you become that rescuer, that caretaker, and all of that. At no point in time are we taught how to take care of ourselves and to set boundaries and to be able to say no.
Right.
And it's a full sentence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nothing needs to come after it. And I think that when that happens, that's truly where stress really starts, is because now we're thinking, oh, I have to take care of everybody. And then the mom guilt, or the guilt about taking care of ourselves. And right now, you know, self-care, everybody's talking about self-care. Unfortunately, they're now, don't get me wrong, I love me a good massage and a manicure.
Right.
But self-care is not just massages and manicures. It's about doing the shadow work and the deep work of finding out, where is this coming from? Where are the roots, and how can I pull the weed out?
Definitely. And then that's where we get to the point where it's a self-sabotaging behavior too. And we stay in the dark of, I'm not worthy of that. I'm going to shy away from it. I don't know how to do that. So I'm going to hoard all of my plans. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to plan it out, but I'm never going to take an action towards it.
Yeah.
And that's not serving anyone, especially not yourself.
Especially if you have a gift. I think when I started this journey of healing and coaching and mentoring, and I mean, I've been a mentor for years. I was a sponsor for people in AA for years. And I think though when we get into this realm, we get into that, well, I should probably just not say anything, or we hoard all the information that we get, and we don't realize that we can't achieve more and do more and be more without giving the information away and taking care of ourselves and doing the healing work and doing the things that are uncomfortable. And yeah, having those days where you're cussing and screaming, or those days where you have, I call them Bridget Jones' diary days, where I just sit in bed and want to eat ice cream all day.
Yeah.
Those are okay to have those days, but unfortunately society is like, well, no, you need to push through it. Just push through it. And all that does is makes us feel shitty about ourselves. So what does that do for our stress levels? It goes up. When our stress level goes up, I don't know about you, but I used to shove food in my mouth. That was my thing. Or I didn't eat.
Right.
Because I used it as punishment. And then my stress levels would go up. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think, well, so how do you bring your stress levels down? Well, there's so many different ways, but you can self-soothe, and I love that self-soothing. We need to self-soothe a lot.
Yeah.
Self-soothing is so important. It's taking that breath and saying, okay, is there really a saber-toothed tiger coming down the street? Mm-hmm. Oh no, it's a fluffy bunny. But our brain doesn't recognize the fluffy bunny. It thinks it's that one cartoon item or movie, whatever it is, where it has the big teeth and it's really
yeah.
And people are like, oh, that's the bunny, and it's really not, because, and this is a little sciencey, and forgive me, and if Casey, feel free to cut me off, but
you're good.
So if you have this little thing in the back of your brain, it's called your amygdala. It is your primal brain. It needs sex, it needs security, and it needs safety. That's what it needs. And if it doesn't feel safe, it's like danger, danger, danger. Well, there's a pathway that goes up to the prefrontal cortex. And there's a road that goes back and forth, and there's lots of communication. So the amygdala goes, holy shit, it's a saber-toothed tiger, fires it off. And your prefrontal cortex looks at it, and your eyes go, oh, it's a cute, fluffy bunny. Okay, we're okay. And so it sends a message back. What happens is when we have so much cortisol in our system and our stress level gets higher and higher and higher and higher, it's almost like we get potholes in that information highway. And pretty soon we have potholes that the little guys that fly up and down your little information highway have to leap over, or there's a break in it. And when that happens, the amygdala goes, saber-toothed tiger, and our prefrontal cortex doesn't hear it. So it reminds me, have you seen that T-Mobile commercial where the lady, she's like, oh, it's my first dinner date with these corporate people, blah, blah, blah. And her friend's like, remember, this is a business. Don't wear a costume, blah, blah, blah. Just chill out. And because she has bad reception, AKA potholes going back and forth, all she heard was, it's a costume party. Mm-hmm. And so she shows up in this big costume and it's very awkward. It's very similar to what happens in your brain. And then we call it getting hijacked by the amygdala, and you're scared shitless of everything. And if you just look in the media nowadays, we have so many people that are just sitting in hijacked amygdala where everything is scary. We don't want to talk to anybody. We don't want to hug anybody. We don't want to communicate with anybody because, we're, like you said earlier, that fear of judgment, that fear of shame, that fear of everything. And it just is building and building and building and building and building. And we can buffer it if we use our happy hormones, mm-hmm. like our dopamine. That's, celebrating. I mean, I found a penny today and I was like, woohoo, I found a penny. Right. And I did a little dance. And then, that your celebration, that's your external and that runner's high, which let's just face it, I've never had it.
Me neither.
There's no hungry grizzly bears here in Pensacola. I see no need to run. And then, it also, that's something new is that hit of dopamine. And what you alluded to, which I love, is the serotonin. That's your inside, that's your gut. And 80 to 90% of that is produced in our gut. So if we're eating shitty food and we're at McDonald's, there's these little things that live in your belly. Your food comes in and they're up there and the little food comes in. They're like, oh, hey friend, how are you? And then the nutrients go down and they're absorbed into your body. Well, if we're super stressed out and our cortisol level is super high and we're eating shitty food, instead of being like, oh, hey, where are my friends? They're like, and so the food comes in and it's like, no. Hey, where are my friends? I don't see my friends. Oh, well, we're just going to keep on going and out the body it goes. And then serotonin also is one of those things that it's 90% in your gut, but you can also self-soothe by doing meditations, doing gratitude. Set random alarms on your phone. And when it goes off, just think in that moment, what's one thing I'm really super grateful for in this moment?
Definitely.
And just like put one hand on your heart, one on your belly, and just be like, so glad it's only the axle that's wrong with my car.
And nothing happened to you.
And it didn't break when I was driving down the freeway because I might have a problem with speed.
Yeah, me too.
And then the other one is oxytocin, the cuddle hormone. You can get that from gazing into someone's eyes. You can even get it from like in a Zoom when you look at someone and it doesn't, you don't have to be face to face and eyeball to eyeball, but holding hands with someone and like I'm single and I have a dog, Lumpy Lou. And so that's where I get my hit.
Lumpy Lou.
She's a pocket pit. So she's like, she's a full pit bull. She looks like a tank, but her legs are like, a corgi's. So yeah, her name's Lumpy Lou. So, we snuggle a lot. And that's where you probably don't want to, you can pet your goldfish or your alligator pet or whatever it is. But that's where we get those oxytocins and antidepressants are super serotonin heavy. Mm-hmm. And like you lost that 40 pounds in the last month because you understood if I eat right, if I eat healthy foods, my body gets happier, my gut heals. And in that gut, 80% of our information, our brain sends down this statistic. See, here I go getting sciencey. This statistic blew me out of the water. 80% of the communication does not go from our brain down to our gut. We have a second brain, it's in our gut. 20% of information goes down to our gut. 80% of the information of how we feel, that's why we call it a gut feeling, 80% goes up to our brain. So if we're eating shitty and we're not taking care of ourselves and we're always stressed out and we're always looking for the boogeyman hanging around the corner and we're not listening to our guts about, hey, that's probably not something you should do, this is why our stress levels get so freaking high.
Definitely.
And then, we go ahead and we're like, oh, I'm going to meditate. We start meditating and our life starts going better. And then our body goes, I need that cortisol. Oh, danger, danger. Something's going on. And then so what we do is we go, I'm just going to have one chip. Mm-hmm. It's like going to a Mexican. Just going to have one.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, I do not go to a Mexican restaurant and have one dip of a chip into the guac or the beans or the salsa. No, I'm just everything's going in the old pie hole. So that's where what you're talking about, that self-sabotage happens, is because all of a sudden we start feeling better, and those root problems of it's never going to work, I'm not good enough to lose weight, it always comes back.
Well, that's just like you said, it's like what we both teach our people is it's the 80-20 rule. It's not just about our gut and our mind. It's trusting that gut of an 80% feeling that's only requiring you to have a 20% action, right? That's
Yep.
going to give you back another 80% of a positive.
Yeah.
That's the cycle we need to focus on.
Yeah. And it's so funny because people are so scared. Like my clients are terrified. And when we start working together and we do have that first session, and I always call them the next day and I'm like, hey, how's it going? They always, I have not had one person tell me, they all say the same thing. And because I've done it and because I know you've done it, I always feel lighter.
Mm-hmm.
I feel freer. I feel like I can breathe. Like there's not this 1,000-pound gorilla sitting on my chest. Like I can actually lower, my shoulders aren't here. I'm not walking around like this. My shoulders are actually here and I can breathe.
Yeah. Well, that's with our subconscious mind that we both do is, it's what's in your subconscious mind is your reality. And what I teach people is like, you get to still choose what that is. You just need to figure out what do you actually need, right?
Yeah.
And then we essentially just download it in. And then that is as simple as it is of taking that step forward and allowing it to happen, to saying, I'm worthy of this. I can trust this because I trust myself. I'm safe here. And I know I'm going to get a return.
Yeah.
How many situations in a day does everyone have as an opportunity for that?
Yeah. And you get to choose every single day. And I've had people listen to my podcast and I've had people that have said, oh, they're probably listening going, okay, Julie, all right, Casey, whatever, but you don't understand my life. Mm-hmm. You don't understand what I'm going through.
What I would say to them is, do you?
Yeah. Do you? And the other thing is last time I checked, it's not a competition to see who's been through the shittiest thing.
No, never.
Because we trauma compare so often.
Oh, yeah.
And then that ratchets up our stress because like when I went through the hurricane, I lost everything, but I still have my house. So I was sitting there going, yeah, well, people wanted to do a GoFundMe. And I'm like, no, because some people have it. They're like, Julie, you have nothing. Like I didn't even have a pair of flip-flops. I had nothing. They're like, Julie, let us do a GoFundMe. I'm like, no, there's so many other people that had it worse than me. And right then and there, now looking back, I was like, and I allowed it because I thought about it and I was like, I don't even have a bed. I'm like, okay, go ahead.
Right.
But in that moment, we compare like, oh, well, Casey's doing this. And, oh, well, she's so much better at it than I am. And we use that as that club just to beat the shit out of ourselves, which up goes our stress, up goes all of the things. And you have the right to live a life of freedom. You have the right to be happy and you have the right to feel joy in your life. And when people, for years, I thought that you couldn't be angry and joyful at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we're getting good stuff here. I already got stuff to come too. Go for it, girl.
So I thought that you couldn't be pissed off and grateful in the same moment. Mm-hmm. Like, because all of the teachings that I had always heard is you can't be in the dark and in the light at the same time. And discovering that you can hold space for the duality is huge. You can be absolutely grief-stricken and still be grateful in the same moment.
Definitely.
I'm pissed that they did not find, they had my car for 2 weeks. I'm pissed that they didn't find that my axle was broken, but I'm so grateful that it's fixable, that I didn't get into an accident. I didn't hurt myself or anyone else. And so it's really about learning how to open up our chest and breathe and to be able to see the emotion and hold space for both of them and give. And I love it. You can ask, okay, anger, what do you need right now? What do you need that gratitude can give you right now?
Yeah.
And then the gratitude, what do you need from the anger? Because sometimes We can be super grateful, but we don't take action. When we're angry, that gives us fuel, that gives us that fire. So sometimes the gratitude will say, hey, I need some anger so that I can take action to take care of this, of whatever this is. But it's learning to hold this space of that duality, which people are like, oh no, you can't do that. Well, you're right. You just said you can't, so you can't. Good luck.
Right. And that is like our beliefs create our surroundings, right? And it creates our behaviors and it creates the action that we're willing to take. And what the little piece that I wanted to throw in there was, we already touched base on it just slightly, was boundaries, right? So, I mean, I'm coming out of a marriage, and a lot of us have already been in these types of relationships with our parents, with our loved ones, with our brothers, and with our clients. You have a relationship in every connection that you make. And those boundaries, or just like you're saying, you can still be in something and have a boundary and have anger and gratitude. And this discernment of creating those boundaries is just you voicing what you want and what you need. It doesn't mean that anything leaves that conversation or that relationship other than a negative.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I mean, yeah, it's like, so empowering there as well, of saying like, hey, I respect you and I cherish you, and I can see that you're going through a hard time and I want to help you. Here's how much I can help, 80-20 rule, because here's what I also want and need. And I know we can coexist in this kind of way. I mean, that's what I did with my stress addiction, is like I did that with all of my relationships. And that removing that stress and that cortisol from those relationships allowed me to keep them in a different certain way and drop 40 pounds and all of the inflammation that was with it, so that I felt like I could trust myself, and I felt safe, and I felt respected, and I felt loved. And like you said, because I self-soothed inside, and that's what projected out.
Yep. It gets me so excited. I flipped into a hot flash. So that's what happens. That's what happens when you hit 50, y'all. You're like, oh God, here it comes. I'm gonna start getting really red.
It just means you're passionate about what we're talking about.
So passionate about it. And it's true. And people think that, and I could go down the rabbit hole on this forever.
Go for it if you want to.
Is that we don't establish boundaries because we don't think that we're worthy enough to have them. When you have toxic people in your life, you have every single solitary without an excuse. You don't have to give anybody an excuse. You can cut them out.
Definitely.
I tell my clients to be Saturn. Be the planet Saturn. Because I'm Saturn. And if you look at Saturn, there's the planet Saturn. And around Saturn is a white space. And then beyond that white space are the rings of Saturn. The people that are in your life, you determine whether they're in your white space or they're in your rings, and wherever you want them to go in the rings is where you place them, and they don't get to come into your white space.
Correct.
Because it is so important. That's where, again, stress comes from, because you think about it, the holidays are coming up. Oh God, I don't want to go see Aunt Edna. No, don't make me. She always pinches my cheeks and tries to slip me tongue. It's so gross, right? You don't have to go see Aunt Edna.
No.
You can say no. And if you do go see her, she comes up, oh baby.
Yeah.
You can say no. And I think it's so important that discovering that boundaries are not just something that you should have, they're imperative.
Definitely.
Because only the people, I'm very, I didn't used to be, man, rescuer, people pleaser. Oh, jeez.
Me too.
Everything out there. I would, oh, you don't have a shirt. Here, let me give you my shirt. Julie, you don't have another one. It's okay. My bra looks like a swimsuit top. It's fine. I mean, the rescuing of, oh, I don't have any place to stay. Oh, well, I have an extra bedroom. Now
we're enabling them to come up with their own solutions and to see their own self-sabotaging cycles and to have their own boundaries and expressing their own needs.
Because when you say no to someone, it forces them to figure it out.
Yeah.
Or what they do is they go find other people, and the people that trample along your boundaries, and they're out in the rings of Saturn and they're way out here, and all of a sudden you see them creeping closer closer and they'll dip that toe into your white space. And if you don't hold that boundary, they're just going to come swimming right across and into you. And those are people that don't respect you. And you are allowed to remove toxic people from your life with you don't have to justify it. You don't have to make excuses for it. You can remove toxic people because you're worthy of not having toxic people in your life.
Definitely. And that goes for every single person that's ever existed.
Yeah. I don't even care if it's my mom. If my mom's toxic, listen, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you right now.
Yeah.
I choose not to talk to you right now. No. Well, why not? No. Well, you're just mean. And?
Yeah.
It's your perception.
Definitely.
I love me enough to say no.
Yeah. I remember, so with my journey, the first thing that I came out with when I started stepping into actual coaching instead of just with my clients here in the office was my first round of talking about grief and how the different stages of grief come along and how we determine what we want and what we need, and that self-awareness through our grieving process. And the one thing that I grieve the most is the same thing that I'm still going through, and I'll probably always go through it because that's what we do. We heal and we heal and we heal, and that's rearranging those relationships. And that was when I first discovered, like, hey, something needs to change in my marriage. And eventually a lot of things changed in my marriage, but the one question that started everything did come from my mother. And I love that she was there to say it because that's what started everything. And it hurt a hell of a fucking lot. And it was, is it really that bad? Just like you're saying with the hurricane. Is it really that bad? And my answer to her, which is my very first boundary I think I've ever set in my life, was, should it ever be bad?
Right.
Why can't it just be great?
Yeah.
And that's the first step.
And once you set that first boundary and you're like, oh,
that was on. Game on.
You're like, I didn't die from that. Nothing struck me down.
Right.
Let me do another one. And you do that second one. And then it starts giving you that feeling of empowerment of, I have the right to heal. Mm-hmm. I can do this. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. And then it starts this journey of and you're going through it. I've been through it. You start through that journey and you really learn that it's so important to choose you above everybody else.
Definitely. And that's what happens once we start doing that. And like you and I have both seen with our clients and our families and everybody, is you paved that road. It went from trampled grass to dirt to gravel to paved, and everyone is following behind you.
Yeah.
That every single person who sees you, they don't have a choice. As long as they see that in you, the sparkle in your eye in you, the fire behind your wings, they want a piece of it.
Yeah.
And they're going to do anything to make sure that they get a piece of it, because that is that envy, right? That's the drive that we have. And that is the good stress. That's the good cortisol. That's the good step forward. To keep pushing forward. So one of my questions for you, I know before we get done, is why are you rising Phoenix?
So when I went through this journey, it was really funny because everybody was like, "Oh, you should do the lotus because it blooms from the mud." And I was like, "Does this bitch look like she likes mud?" No, I don't even do a face mask. No, I don't like mud. And I was sitting there one day and all of a sudden I saw a picture of a phoenix. And I sat there and it's that gut feeling of, ooh, all right. And it was funny because I love how the universe works. So I was sitting there over at a friend's house because I couldn't live in my house. And so I'm sitting at my friend's house and her son loves Harry Potter. And it happened to be the episode where the Phoenix heals Hermione. And when the tears of the Phoenix are healing. And the same thing is when you cry, it's healing. Mm-hmm. And a Phoenix rises. And through my life, I'm 54 years old. Through my life, I have had to go through fire, some really scary stuff. And I've always risen. And you go back to ashes and you rise again. You end up in the ashes and you rise again. And so for me, my company is called Divine Phoenix Rising. My podcast is called Be the Phoenix of Your Own Life, because I think that when we realize that the flames of a phoenix aren't there to burn you, they burn away everything that no longer serves you.
Yes.
That's when you rise.
Definitely.
Yeah. Definitely. So that's where it came from, and I'm slightly addicted to phoenixes. I got my a StreamYard is always backwards, so I always have
to
get my phoenixes over there. I got phoenixes everywhere.
Yeah. So I mean, that was the first story that I was told. That's where mine came from. Is like that I decided to have an empowering conversation inside, and I decided that that was enough, and that was the only thing that mattered, and that whoever was supposed to be around during that would stay. And that's when the grass turned into dirt, and the dirt turned into gravel, and the gravel turned into paved. And that is the new perspectives. That's my gift. Is like I ask really fucking hard questions, and when questions get thrown at me, I'm gonna be that person in the light version of saying, if you're gonna ask me a question, then you have to answer my questions too. That's what I make sure I bring as self-awareness for everyone, is that everyone is worthy enough to show up in the same exact amount of space.
Yes.
No one is ever less than you, and that's what the pivoting moments that change our life is, when that worthiness is totally downloaded and used. Just like these things, we can journal, we can plan all as much as we want, but until we take that step forward and start using what's inside of us, that's when you start to live your life.
And that first step is scary as hell. And discovering that you're worthy is not all of a sudden this thing where you're like, oh, I'm worthy. It's that discovery of when you set that first boundary, and you don't cross your boundary, and you hold that boundary, and you realize, and it's not all magic and sunshine, because you're going to lose people. And sometimes you lose people that you really care about and you thought were going to be in your life for a long time. What you gain is that self-power, that self-love, that self-respect, that honor that you have for yourself. And I tell my clients all the time that you're enough. You were born enough. You were born into this world enough with everything that you ever needed. You're enough right now. It doesn't matter. You're not too tall, too short, too fat, too thin, too dark, too light, too whatever. It doesn't matter. You're enough as you are right now. You will always be enough. And if you could only see the divine light that shines out from your eyes, you'd never doubt greatness again. You would never doubt your greatness. If you could see what I see, like I tell my clients, if you could see what I see, you would never doubt your greatness, ever.
Well, that's the thing. It's like people come up to me all the time, like, Casey, like you're on fire, girl. You're doing awesome. I'm like, You're seeing the light, and everyone has it in them. They just have to make it brighter.
Yeah. And you can't see in me what you don't already have in yourself. So if you see me as powerful, awesome. That's because when you look in the mirror, you might not see it, but that power is in there. You cannot see it in someone else. And it kind of sucks when you see somebody that's like a Karen, and then you're like, you're like, oh man.
We all got it.
Recovering
it's being highlighted so we can work on it, not suppress it.
It's kind of like throwing up. We never want to throw up, but until it comes up and comes out, we're never going to feel better.
Right. Definitely. All right. Any closing thoughts, Miss Julie?
The biggest thing is that worthiness of knowing that who you are is perfect. You came into this journey to make an impact in this world. And when we learn that who we are is enough, and when we learn to step into that next thing, no matter if your knees are shaking and your voice is quaking and you just nearly shit yourself, do it anyways. Do it anyways, because a friend of mine recorded a thing about the dash. It's not the most important part of your life. Isn't the day that you were born. It's not the day that you die. It's that dash in between, because that is your life, and you get to choose what that dash means. Definitely. And it really doesn't matter who is in your life. You determine what the dash means and what's important to you.
Definitely. And making sure that whoever is in there, that we're doing that discernment too, right? We're setting those boundaries, and we're deciding in the choices of, what is this life going to look like for us, and making sure that we take that action through the stressful situations
Yeah.
and educating ourselves on what we want, what we need, and the scientific facts behind it too. Is stop taking everyone else's word for it and go research it yourself. Like find internally research and externally research in the right people who believe the same thing. Like Julie and I, it's like they're out there. They may not be your next door neighbor. They may not be your best friend. They may not be your spouse, but they're out there.
Yep.
And you just have to take those steps forward in defining who you are and finding who you are and finding the right people that can help you along the same journey. So.
Yeah, shine your little weirdo light and all your other weirdo little friends will find you. My weirdo light is beaming out there right now.
And I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we do hope that you join us again sometime in the future as well.
And I want to offer the same to you. I want you to come on the podcast because I think it would be absolutely amazing because I love the work that you do. And I love that you and I share the same work, but we do it in
totally different ways.
Totally different ways.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it.
So I'm going to leave everyone with the same question that we started off with. What kinds of reoccurring situations or people do you attract? What kinds of lessons might they have about you? Like, what are they trying to show you? So there's your homework tidbit of the day, and we will catch you on our next episode together. Thank you again, Miss Julie, and we will see everyone soon.